Dan's father, Jack, moved his family to Riverside, California in 1947. When Dan was only 19 years old, he built and raced a car that went 139 miles an hour at the Bonneville Salt Flats in 1950. He would later study at Menlo Junior College. He then became an amateur drag racer and sports car racer. Dan Gurney, though, would serve in the military in the Korean War, where he volunteered instead of waiting to be drafted. He went active duty in 1952. He would end up spending 2 years, including 18 months overseas in South Korea, as an artillery and gun mechanic. In 1955, Dan would continue his racing career, competing in SCCA club races in Southern California, driving a Triumph TR2. Some of his races would be on October 23rd at Torrey Pines, where he would finish 10th, and in December, he would race at Palm Springs, preliminary race, where he finished 22nd in the same car. In 1956, he would continue racing in SCCA, with his best finish being second place on June 23, 1956, driving his Porsche 356 1600 Super Speedster. He also finished first in the E-Production class in that event. The 1957 year would be his most successful year to this point, winning his production class in a Chevy Corvette, getting second at Riverside, and winning the Paramount Ranch in December. In 1958, this year, he emerged as one of the most promising young road racers in the country and even getting international recognition, winning at Palm Springs, Santa Barbara, and competing in the 12 Hours of Sebring and 24 Hours of Le Mans, 12 Hours of Reims, Watkins Glen, finishing second in the Formula Libre Grand Prix, driving a Ferrari 290mm. In October, he raced the Riverside United States Grand Prix for sports cars, finishing second, earning him a test with Ferrari's Formula One team. On top of all that, he won the USAC Road Racing Championship despite only competing in the series part-time. In 1959, this would be Dan's first season in the Formula One. He finished second at the German Grand Prix, with Ferrari finishing 1, 2, and 3, with Tony Brooks winning the event. In the Portuguese Grand Prix, he finished third, scoring another podium, and finishing fourth in the Italian Grand Prix. In 1960, Dan would leave Ferrari and would race for BRM, but this year would not be his year due to a lot of mechanical failures that would plague him throughout this year, including the Dutch GP where, due to a brake failure, his car would roll over, killing a spectator. However, he did have some success with people like Sterling Marlin, and they would win the 1,000-kilometer Nürburgring driving a Maserati Tipo 61. He would finish the year on a high note, winning the Nassau Trophy in the Bahamas driving a Lotus 19, showing his versatility in the sport. Dan in 61 would drive for Porsche in its first full Formula One season. It would be a great season with him getting second in 3 races: the French Grand Prix, Italian Grand Prix, and the United States Grand Prix. In 1962, it would be an amazing year for Dan. He won the 1962 French Grand Prix at Rouen, won the Daytona Continental 3 hours driving a Lotus 19, running in the Indianapolis 500 and the Daytona 500. In 1963, Dan Gurney would have one of the most successful seasons of his career so far at this point, winning his first NASCAR Cup victory at the Riverside 500 at Riverside International Speedway in California, getting 2 second-place finishes in Formula One and 1 third-place finish in Formula One, also finishing 7th at the Indianapolis 500 that year, and finishing 5th at the Daytona 500. In 64, it would be another stellar year for Dan, winning 2 Grand Prix victories, the French Grand Prix and the Mexican Grand Prix. In the 24-hour Le Mans, he would win the GT class and finish 4th overall. He would also continue his success in NASCAR, winning the Motor Trend 500 at Riverside that year. In 1965, it would be a great year in Formula One for Dan, with 5 consecutive podium finishes in the last 5 races, 3 second-place finishes, and 2 third-place finishes. He would again win the NASCAR Motor Trend 500 at Riverside, and he would also compete that year at the Indianapolis 500 in his Lotus 38. In 1966, Dan would launch his own racing team, the All-American Racers, in Formula One. Their best finish would be 5th in the French Grand Prix and 5th in the Mexican Grand Prix. The same year, he would get 2nd in the 24 Hours of Daytona racing for Shelby American in the legendary Ford GT40 program. He would also win the Motor Trend 500 again at Riverside International Raceway, which would be his 4th NASCAR Cup Series victory. In 1967, Dan would see great success with his race team. In June that year, he would win the Belgian Grand Prix, becoming the only American-born driver to ever race and win in a car of his own design. He would also get 3rd in the Canadian Grand Prix. At the 24 Hours of Le Mans race, he would race in his Ford Mark VI. They would win, becoming the only All-American victory ever at Le Mans. In 1968, the Eagle team would struggle financially. Midway through the year, Dan would switch to a McLaren M7A. His best finish this year would be 2nd at the German Grand Prix. He would also finish 2nd at the Indianapolis 500 and also go on to win the 1968 Motor Trend 500 in the NASCAR Series for his 5th NASCAR Grand National victory. This year, he would be the first Formula One driver to wear a full-faced helmet and also the last NASCAR driver to win a NASCAR race carrying a 3-digit number. In 1969, Dan would finish 2nd at the Indianapolis 500 for his 2nd consecutive year. Mercury would introduce the 1969 Dan Gurney Special Mercury Cyclone, named in his honor. In 1970, it would be Dan's final full season. At the Indianapolis 500, he would finish 3rd in his final Indy 500 and his 3rd top 3 finish in a row. He announced his retirement in October at the Riverside Trans Am race at the age of 39. The legend would pass away in 2018 due to complications with pneumonia, but his legend will never die. He would end his career with 4 wins, 19 podiums, 3 pole positions in Formula One alone. In his Champ Car career, he would have 7 wins, 16 podiums, and 10 poles. In his NASCAR career, he would have 5 wins, 10 top 10s, and 3 poles. He would have a win at the 24 Hour Le Mans and 2 class wins. He had championship titles in 1958 and 59, 12 Hours of Sebring, and the USAC Road Racing Championships. As a true pioneer, legend, and icon of the sport, and the impact he has made in all of racing, he will never be forgotten.